Hey everyone, welcome to Whiteboard Friday. I'm Austin, the co-founder and CEO of Lambda School, and today we're going to be talking about a day in the life of a Lambda School student. So the first thing we do on Monday morning when we show up is a code challenge. So that is going to be something we'll be using the language that you've been learning during that section of the course. So in the beginning, that's JavaScript. Later on, it's C. Later on, it's Python. But really, that's kind of a brain teaser, kind of something similar that you'd see in a job interview. So in a lot of job interviews, you'll show up and they'll give you a little puzzle you need to solve so they can verify whether or not you actually understand algorithms and data structures and the nuance of programming. So we actually practice that every day. After the code challenge, we do a code review. So you'll have a TA, they'll walk through how they would have solved the code challenge. Sometimes there are multiple ways to solve them, but that's how we start off the day, kind of warming up and solving some puzzles. After we've done the code challenge and the code challenge review, we move into kind of the lecture or the instruction part. Usually, along with the live instruction, there's a kind of 15-minute review or overview or introduction that you're supposed to watch on your own beforehand. But whether or not that's the case, after that's done, we move into live instruction. So live instruction will be with your cohort, with an expert instructor, and they're going to introduce a new objective. Everything that we do at Lambda School is objective-based, and that means we start out when we're designing curriculum by talking to our hiring partners, by talking to employers, and figuring out what they really need Lambda School students to know in order to hire them. And then we work backwards from those objectives and build it out into a curriculum. So every time that you show up at live instruction, the goal of that is actually to get you to understand and be able to do something, not just understand some theoretical idea. Even if it's in the computer science section, which is a little more theoretical, we still practice and make sure that we can actually perform the task that you'll need to do as a software engineer. So in that live instruction, there are 3 phases. We call it I do, we do, you do. So the first is I do. That is when, that's talking from the perspective of an instructor. So I do is when an instructor will talk about, they'll introduce a topic, they'll talk about how it works, they'll implement it, they'll build something really simple, and then we enter we do. So we do, you'll actually code alongside the instructor. So you'll bring up the lecture over here, you'll have the other students talking over here, and then you'll have your code, and you'll actually be implementing a different project as the instructor is talking. And that really gets you into the flow of building things, but you can see how you should be building things. You can kind of wrap your mind around it a second time. And then after that, we do what's called you do. And that is when you're turned loose. You try to implement it on your own. We see if there are any missing gaps, and then we go back in after the you do. We see if there are any gaps we need to fill. We make sure that you thoroughly understand what you need to know about that objective or that topic. So sometimes people ask us, oh, so Lambda School is basically just a bunch of videos online? And that's definitely not the case. Everything that we do and almost all of your time is interactive. You're working with other people. And the process of learning really requires that in order for you to cement topics. And you need that feedback loop of you and TAs and instructors and other students. And that's how you really learn. It's not just learning from a bunch of video lessons. After that, we have lunch. So lunch is at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is a little bit later on the East Coast. But the idea of lunch is you will be mentally exhausted at this point. Your brain will be turning to mush, and we really encourage you to get out, to go for a run, to hit the gym, to do something to break up the day, something physical, ideally, so that you can come back refreshed, energized, and ready to do the second half of the day. So when you come back, you'll have a project. So that project is based on the stuff that we learned during that day, and it's a completely different assignment than what you've seen before, but now it's your time to really test and try out and say, do I actually know how to do the things that we've been talking about how to do? Another thing we want Lambda School students to understand is that there is live help available all day. There's more than enough staff to be able to respond to any request instantly. We rarely see a request for help go longer than 10 seconds. That said, the goal of help isn't to just give you the answer. The goal of the help is to help you understand what pieces in your mental model are missing, understand what you need to do to be able to do what you need to do, and to help you come to that conclusion on your own to some degree. So that sometimes feels a little, Socratic. Sometimes it feels like, I know you know the answer, just give it to me. But working through that process is really, really important. And something that you'll hear Lambda School staff and students say a lot is that at Lambda School, we don't teach you how to do things, we teach you how to think. We teach you how to learn things. And you'll hear that expressed frequently by Lambda School students when they're toward graduation, that when they see something they've never approached before, maybe it's a new programming language, maybe it's a new API that they've never touched, they understand how to think through that from first principles and learn what they need to do. And that's what an engineer's job really is. You'll spend most of your time learning how to do something new and relatively less time implementing things that you already understand. So that process is very, very critical. And then after that project, at the end of the day, we have a stand-up. So in that stand-up, you'll again meet with your little group of students. It's usually a really small group. You'll go over your project. You'll have a small code review, and we see where you're stuck, where you need help, and try to fill in any final missing gaps. Make sure that you can complete the objective of that day. And that is the average day from Monday through Thursday. It usually looks like that. You're going to end the day mentally exhausted. You're going to learn faster than you've ever been able to learn before. You're going to be shocked at how quickly you learn and are able to process and maintain and implement new knowledge and build new things. But that is Monday through Thursday. There are two other things that we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and let's talk about this one first. From 6 to 8 p.m., we have what we call after hours. So this is an optional review where every section has an open kind of Q&A review that talks about the stuff that they've been learning that week. One of the really cool things about after hours is that you don't necessarily have to stay with what your cohort is learning that week. Maybe you need a review of something that you should have learned a month ago, that or you need a refresher on it. You can go ahead and jump into that review. Maybe you want a preview of what's happening up ahead. You can jump into that review. And that's really just kind of your own time to understand what's going on, to ask questions, and make sure that you have a full understanding of all the things that we've been going over. There's something that Lambda School students don't even know about that we're going to begin implementing soon. On Thursdays only, toward the end of the day, is what we call Fineman Hour. So Fineman is a famous physicist that we model a lot of our pedagogical methodologies after what he discovered and how people think and how they learn. And one of the things that Fineman talks about a lot is that the best way to learn is to be able to teach. So in Fineman Hour, students that are, say, 2 months into the program are going to try to teach students that are 4 months into the program what they learned that week, which serves as a review for one party. And really, one of the best ways to learn something is by being able to teach it. And then the reverse will happen as well, where another student will teach back, and you'll get kind of a preview of what's happening up ahead. But most importantly, being able to think through all of the topics, being able to think through everything that you need to understand in order to be able to teach it to somebody else makes you much, much better. In my opinion, the most important day of the week at Lambda School is Friday. Friday is when you're given an opportunity in what we call the Sprint Challenge to show us and yourself what you've learned during the week. So you'll be using all of the objectives, all of the topics that you've covered during the week to do one final larger project. After the sprint review time, we have what we call a brown bag. That's an optional kind of a lecture discussion where we'll bring somebody in from industry that is an expert, and they'll talk about what they do, how they do it. Sometimes we'll talk about how to quickly move from being a junior engineer to a senior engineer, how to really contribute to a team. Sometimes it's an additional deep dive on salary negotiation. It really all depends. Sometimes it's going to be people just showing you something new that you've never seen before in the world of software. So that's optional, but it's a really cool way to get a sense of what's happening out in the world, meet some people that come in from different companies, understand what different companies are working on, how they're different, and that's the brown bag. After the brown bag, we have what we call a sprint review. And that is when you'll have a full code review. We'll go through your code, we'll see what you're missing, we'll see what you did well, and we'll give you a very frank assessment of where you are relative to where you need to be. Now, there's sometimes when we're doing a sprint review and we discover that we missed something or that something wasn't fully understood during the week. And that is where Lambda School becomes really, really special, because we will both assign additional resources to help make sure that you understand those things as we go forward. Or sometimes it makes sense that, you know, there's just something that we weren't really grasping and we need another shot at it. So we use something called mastery-based progression. And if we discover during a sprint review that, you know what, there's a lot of things from this week that are just not clicking, instead of forcing you to move on and be more and more confused, we'll actually just roll you back a week. And on Monday, you'll come in and you'll start the whole week over again. That mastery-based progression where you don't move on unless you fully grasp a concept is something that no educator would argue against. Everybody understands that that is the best way to truly learn. It's just frankly expensive and hard to do. And that's one of the times when we see how important it is at Lambda School that our incentives are aligned with yours. Frankly, it's really expensive to do mastery-based progression. It takes a lot of extra effort and coordination on our end to make sure that everybody can repeat the material that they need to as often as they need to. But we need to do that so that we know that any Lambda School graduate has a stamp of approval that we say, yes, this person is absolutely ready to go get a job. And when our hiring partners come and talk to us, or when somebody comes and says, hey, do Lambda School students know XYZ? Can they perform in these scenarios? We can adamantly say yes. And at the end of almost every lecture, and definitely at the end of every week, the way that we learn how you're feeling, how you're doing, is we have feedback. So we have feedback per lesson, we have it per sprint, which is a week long, we have it tied to instructors, we have it tied to your project managers and section leads. And that is a way for Lambda School to really easily see at a glance what we're missing. So one of the most important things that makes Lambda School great is how quickly we can receive and iterate on that feedback. So when we get that feedback, if there's something that's unclear, we'll readdress that, and within a week, that lecture or that unit has already been cleared up. The section that starts Lambda School right now is already the 12th iteration of us gathering feedback and implementing it. So Lambda School just gets better and better as we go. So if you're a student, please use the feedback form. That's one of the things that makes Lambda School great. Please leave very brutally honest feedback. You won't hurt our feelings. And whether or not you're a Lambda School student, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave something in the comments below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to get more videos like this. Thank you so much.